What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel you know and love. It's Postmetrics, and today we are going to be doing another fantasy football ranking video. Today we are going to be doing running backs, which you all have been waiting for. And since you all been waiting for it for so long, we're going to get straight into it. However, quick disclaimer, as usual, if you disagree or agree, please let me know down in the comments. It always helps me out to hear your feedback. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. Cue the intro. Alright, so here we are at the tier list. Right here we have 36 running backs, which I will be ranking today. We have the first tier list column that's, running backs ranked 1 to 5. Then we have 6 to 10, 11 to 20, 21 to 30, and then 31 to 36. Starting off with number 1, I think you all know who it's going to be. It's going to be Christian McCaffrey. Overall, the top fantasy football player right now, according to ESPN, the top running back. So ESPN agrees with me. But, what more can I say? The dude had 14 rushing touchdowns and 7 receiving touchdowns last year. That's 21 total touchdowns as a running back. Obviously, winning the Offensive Player of the Year, well-deserved. I mean, it's been well-deserved by him the entire year. He never slowed down. But, behind a good offensive line, a team that really knows how to, even though I don't like the 49ers all that much, you got to respect their play style. A team that has wide receivers that can also run the ball, a team that can basically do everything. You have wide receivers who can also run the ball, and you have a running back that can also catch the ball too. He can run, he can catch, he acts like a receiver most of the time, and he has a decent offensive line, obviously having the best left tackle in the entire league with Trent Williams. He doesn't look like he ages a day each year. So, as long as CMC keeps doing what he's doing, he's going to be the top running back of the league for a long time now, for the foreseeable future. All right, now moving on to the second best running back in the entire league. We got Breece Hall. I mean, this guy didn't really show his true colors yet last year because, the quarterback overall, the situation for the Jets last year was, really terrible, Quarterback was bouncing from player to player. You got Aaron Rodgers, then you got Zach Wilson, then you got Tim Boyle, then you had whoever their fourth-string quarterback was. I think it was Trevor Siemian. But either way, Rodgers will be back. They might have added Mike Williams, so they're going to want to throw the ball a lot, but they did add one of the best left tackles in the entire league, Tyron Smith. And they also took an offensive tackle. If you saw my draft prediction, I had them taking an offensive tackle because they do not need a tight end like Brock Bowers. But it's just that I thought they were going to take Joe Alt. They didn't, though, but they still did take a decent tackle. And now, Breece Hall is definitely going to get some help. I mean, this guy really was decent last year. He only ran for 5 touchdowns, but that's because, again, situation was too bad last year to really tell if he was good or not. But I think since they got a lot of offensive line help, I think he will, really progress this year because, their offensive line, a good offensive line means good blocking. Good blocking means, good amount of yards. A good amount of yards means you get close to touchdown. Touchdowns equals points for you. So draft Breece Hall. If I were you, I would draft Breece Hall if Christian McCaffrey's not available. All right, moving on to number 3. In my opinion, I have Saquon Barkley. Listen, I know people are gonna say I'm being biased, but just hear me out. Saquon Barkley had almost 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns behind a trash O-line like the Giants. So just imagine what he could have, how many yards he could have, how many touchdowns behind the best O-line, even though Kelsey's not here anymore, behind the best O-line in the league and a very good rushing team. Obviously, we didn't, with the coordinators we had last year, we didn't run the ball as much. But now that those guys are out and we have better coordinators now, Saquon Barkley will definitely, obviously, DeAndre Swift is not as good as Saquon Barkley, so that definitely helps. But, Saquon Barkley behind the best O-line, and obviously they're not going to run as well with the tush push since, Jason Kelsey retired the centerpiece of it. So they're going to be wanting to run the ball a lot more at the goal line with Saquon Barkley. Touchdowns to get you points, all that stuff. So, yeah, draft Saquon Barkley. Good O-line, good rushing team, and a significant amount of points that you're asking me. All right, moving on to number 4 now. We have Bijan Robinson. Yeah. This guy had the same amount of fumbles as touchdowns last year. That it was really sad to see. He has a good O-line, but the coaching last year, the position that this guy was put in, he was set up to fail. Obviously, almost had 1,000 yards, had over 900. So if he had been under better management and better coaching, he has the talent. If he had been under better management, then he would have gotten Offensive Rookie of the Year. He would have rushed for over 1,000 yards. And this guy is a significant catcher, too. He can really catch the ball. But, just like they didn't run the ball very well. And obviously, they got a better quarterback, Kirk Cousins. I know what you guys are saying. He's not going to be very significant because they're passing the ball. They have a good quarterback. But listen, Drake London is good and all, but, that's can't be the only guy that you have. Their receivers aren't really as significant as their running back. He's like Christian McCaffrey. He can catch the ball with, wide receivers that can do okay. But, Bijan Robinson, they're going to want to run the ball a lot because, Drake London and Kyle Pitts, they're going to want to pass to. But, Drake London and, who else? Darnell Mooney? No. Obviously, Bijan Robinson's going to be their second option receiving and their first option rushing. So, Bijan Robinson will definitely do better than he did last year. All right, moving on to the 5th, the last running back out of this tier column, we have Kyren Williams. The dude just surprised everyone last year. I don't think it's going to be any different. The guy had 12 touchdowns. I had him. I think I had him ranked. I definitely had him ranked inside the top 10, at least top 5 in my running backs for the 2024 because, the Rams have more than a decent offensive line, and that was mainly the reason for Kyren Williams' success. Obviously they have a good receiving duo, an aging quarterback though, but a good receiving duo that they want to pass the ball a lot. But they also ran the ball. That's why the Rams were really good last year. They barely lost to the Lions in the playoffs. But, if they just keep running the ball with Kyren Williams, they are going to be very dangerous. Good offensive line. Kyren Williams rushed for I think it was over 1,200 yards, 12 touchdowns. And he's a pretty decent catcher, in my opinion. Demarcus Robinson right now is their third string wide receiver. I don't really think that's going to cut it. He's been in the league for quite some time now, so Kyren Williams, I would say, is definitely their third option receiving and their best rusher, So you really want to draft those running backs that can run for 1,000 yards and over 10 touchdowns and can catch for at the very least 300 yards and a couple touchdowns. Obviously, he's no Christian McCaffrey, but Kyren Williams, he's like Bijan Robinson when it comes to receiving and rushing. He's very significant in both. So, for those reasons, Kyren Williams is definitely inside the top 5 for running backs right now. And in my opinion, you should definitely draft him. He's set up to be in a very good position. Good offensive line, still a good quarterback, and all that cool stuff. So, yeah, definitely draft Kyren Williams. All right, moving on to number 6, Derrick Henry. Listen, he obviously joined the number 1 rushing offense in the entire league, so that really helps. You got a decent, pretty decent, I would say, offensive line. You know, Roddy Stanley's getting old. Tyler Linderbaum, he's definitely significant still as their center. Again, not really good, significant wide receivers. Like Zay Flowers is decent, but like Nelson Aguilar, Rashad Bateman, no. So obviously, they're gonna want to run the ball, and better? Sorry, what better way to do it than to, sign Derrick Henry, who has been a significant running back for, quite some time now, and I don't see that changing for this year. All right, and moving on now to number 7, we have Jahmyr Gibbs. Whew, this is going to let me in some hot water. What about David Montgomery? I mean, David Montgomery's aging. You know, they need their running back of the future, and that is Jahmyr Gibbs. Obviously, behind I would say the second best offensive line in the entire league. You have Frank Ragnow, Penny Sewell, or however you pronounce his name, Sewell. He had 10 touchdowns last year as a rookie. Me personally, I feel like he should have been at least in the running. I don't really remember if he was, but he should have been in the running for Offensive Rookie of the Year because his stats were really good. He could have had more touchdowns if he wasn't sharing the ball so much with David Montgomery, who last year had 13 touchdowns. Jahmyr Gibbs just barely had under 1,000 yards for the season. But, if he goes into 2024 as the number 1 running back, I think he should do pretty significant. I think he should have a way better year than last year. I think he could have like 13 touchdowns if he really gets significant while David Montgomery is the backup for him. All right, moving on to number 8 now. We have none other than Jonathan Taylor. Listen, this guy has been dealing with some injuries. I know. I get that. But he is behind one of the best left guards in the entire league with Quentin Nelson. He has been significant ever since he was a rookie. 2021, he had the most rushing yards. And he can catch pretty well, too. And Anthony Richardson, who is a running quarterback, will be wanting to run the ball a lot. They're starting to have a very good, fast offense. Like Michael Pittman. You can run the ball with him a little bit. And, yeah, as I mentioned, he can catch, too. So, again, going to have a good rushing offense with a quarterback that can do a lot. A good rushing wide receiver with Michael Pittman. I've seen him. He's pretty significant if he runs those certain jet sweep plays. But obviously, I don't really think that needs to happen too often with Jonathan Taylor. As long as he stays healthy, then I think whoever drafts him should be good to go, in my opinion. All right, moving on to number 9 now. We have Isaiah Pacheco. Obviously, part of, a great O-line. With Creed Humphrey obviously being one of the best centers, Joe Thuney being one of the best, guards, and just overall a team that doesn't have much receiving wise. Obviously, you have Xavier Worthy, cool. Rashee Rice, I mean, I get it. He's also cool. Travis Kelce, obviously the best tight end in the entire league, but just the way they run the ball, the way the Chiefs do a lot of things, they do a lot of things well. They run the ball, they find a way to mix it all up, and yeah, that's why they're the Super Bowl champions back-to-back years. Isaiah Pacheco, he's been pretty significant for the past couple years since he was drafted, but no, by no means is he one of the best. He can't really catch all that well. He's not the best receiver, but if you have an O-line like the Chiefs, who doesn't allow Mahomes to get sacked barely at all, then you should have a significant amount of running going on with Isaiah Pacheco. All right, moving on. All right, moving on to number 10. We have Travis Etienne. Listen, they have Brandon Sheriff, Cam Robinson, Mitch Morse. Like, that is an aggressive O-line. And plus, if you look at their depth chart here, you got Christian Kirk, Gabe Davis, Brian Thomas. I mean, like, that's not the best receiving core. And you have a pretty mid quarterback doing it with Trevor Lawrence. He finally needs to try and find that upper level. So you do have to wonder, are they going to be running the ball a lot? And he can catch pretty well, too. Is he going to be... They had 8 touchdowns last year. Travis Etienne did. By far one of the most underrated players in the entire league, in my opinion. So you do got to wonder, is he going to get a lot of touches? I think he will, because, you got a good O-line. You have an okay receiving core. I mean, Gabe Davis, he's mid, but he's by no means inside of the top 10 out of the wide receivers. So you got to, you got to run the ball a lot, especially when they're at the goal line. Although Travis Etienne did not do as well in the goal line last year, he started off the season hot. But if you look at these last couple games, they were just kind of meh. But I don't think that's going to be the case this year. They had Calvin Ridley last year, who also had 8 touchdowns. But I think the Jaguars should be better this year, but not as good as like the Texans or someone in that division. Who, speaking of which, at number 11, why don't we start this column right here? Joe Mixon from the Texans. Listen, they have Laramie Tunsil, one of the best left tackles in the entire league. I get that, but they're gonna want to pass the ball so much. Because I mentioned this a lot in my wide receiver. They're going to want to share a lot offensively. They got Stephon Diggs, they have Tank Dell, they got Nico Collins, they have Dalton Schultz, So, they're not going to want to run the ball as much. It's like with the Rams, although Kyrie Williams is better than Joe Mixon. But, once you have a good receiving core like Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, then, I get it why you would want to pass the ball a lot. Because, you don't need the running back as much to get you touchdowns. But, with the offensive line that the Texans have, then when they do need to run the ball, they should be good to go. But most of the time, they will want to pass the ball. And that's why Joe Mixon's outside the top 10. All right, moving on to number 12 now. We have James Cook. He only had 2 touchdowns last year and 3 fumbles. He had more fumbles than he did touchdowns. Overall, the Bills were kind of a mess last year. Josh Allen had the most turnovers while having the most touchdowns. But I don't really think that's going to be the case anymore this year. They lost Stephon Diggs and they lost Gabe Davis. Now they have Keon Coleman as their number 1 guy and Khalil Shakir. Not a lot. That's not really a lot receiving wise. James Cook had over 1,000 yards. So again, they're a good running team, so they're gonna want to run the ball a lot. And again, they have Deion Dawkins. They have a pretty decent O-line. That's why Josh Allen had most of his touchdowns last year with 15. So they're going to want to run the ball a lot with Josh Allen and James Cook a lot more since, all their receivers left. So, all these factors play into James Cook being a significant running back next year. Again, decent O-line, all the receivers left, and already a strong running team. So, there's no reason for me to think that James Cook is not going to be significant fantasy-wise this year. All right, moving on to number 13. I have it being Najee Harris. Listen, this guy by far had the best season of his entire career. And now they're adding a lot of offensive line depth to their offense. That is an aggressive way to say that Najee Harris will be better this year. They got rid of Deontay Johnson. They don't have a lot, receiving. They just have George Pickens. I get that. Again, they're going to be running the ball a lot, and we don't know who their quarterback's going to be. If it's Justin Fields, then that's going to be good. They're going to be a good running team, since Justin Fields is a running quarterback, and he's not a good passing quarterback. So, Again, if you heard me in my wide receivers video, that's going to be pretty bad for, George Pickens. If Russell Wilson is their quarterback, then that's not going to be as good for Najee Harris because, they're going to want to pass the ball a lot to George Pickens and not as many touches for Najee Harris. But either way, he will get like a significant amount of touches since they got a lot of offensive line depth in the draft. And my only concern is that they will be wanting to share the ball a little bit with Jaylen Warren. But based on how Najee Harris did last year, there's no doubt that Najee Harris will not be the number one running back going into the Steelers' 2024 season. All right, moving on to, 11, 12, 13. 13 and 14 here. I have number 13. I have, Raheem Mostert. And at number 14, 14, 15. Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane. Listen, these two are a pretty good 1-2 combo. Obviously, Raheem Mostert having 18 touchdowns last year. He got hurt for like a little bit, but either way, 18 touchdowns, and if he had played more games, he would have had more. Devon Achane, he had 4 touchdowns in one game. 2 receiving. Yeah, that's the other thing. He could catch too. He could receive for like a couple touchdowns. And 2 rushing touchdowns. So, until he got hurt. Like, he's a very injury-prone running back at the moment. And, the Dolphins' O-line, it's okay. That's part of the reason why Tua Tagovailoa got sacked so many times in 2022, where he had a concussion twice. And plus, the reason these two are a little lower is because, they have a great receiving combo with Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle that they're going to want to be doing that a lot. So all of those reasons make me to believe that Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane won't be as good as they could be. Obviously, Raheem Mostert aging a lot. He's in his mid-30s. And Devon Achane, if he wants to be like inside the top 10, he can't get hurt that much. He's got to stay healthy in order for him to be a top 10 running back. So, question is, will his age come into play, and will he stay healthy? Those are the 2 questions for these two. All right, moving on now to number 16. Call me crazy, but I have Tony Pollard. Listen, J.C. Latham in the draft, that is very aggressive. They got a good receiving duo. But I think that with the amount of talent this offensive line has now, they could be very dangerous with the running game. Tyjae Spears, not going to get as many touches as Tony Pollard is. Tony Pollard last year was pretty significant behind a good O-line. Zach Martin, the best right guard in the entire league, in my opinion. For those reasons, I think Tony Pollard he's going to get a lot of touches, obviously. I think the Titans will do a great job passing the ball and running the ball, giving it a little mixture. DeAndre Hopkins, he's aging. Calvin Ridley did not do as good. He's starting to regress a lot. So they're going to want to run the ball. They're going to want to run the ball a lot. And what better way to do it than to have Tony Pollard? And plus, they have a very inexperienced quarterback. He's not very accurate with the ball. So, all these factors play in for Tony Pollard's success. So, Tony Pollard. Again, not only did they get J.C. Latham, they did also add to their O-line more than just him. So, if their O-line turns out to be good, then Tony Pollard should get a lot of touchdowns and a lot of points for you if you do draft him. All right, now moving on to number 17, we have David Montgomery. Even though all the things I said about Jahmyr Gibbs, it's not like David Montgomery is going to get 0 touches. The Lions have done a great job last year by really splitting it between these two. So, Yeah, David Montgomery. I don't think that's going to change this year. I think David Montgomery is going to get a lot of touches, but not as many as Jahmyr Gibbs, and definitely not as many as he did last year. 13 touchdowns, over 1,000 yards. Jahmyr Gibbs 900, little in the high 900 for yards and 10 touchdowns. Again behind a good old line. If they really do plan on doing the thing where they did last year, then the Lions should go to the NFC Championship. I'm not even kidding you. Again, if they really are still significant with running the ball, and they can even run the ball too with Jameson Williams since he's fast. I remember once in the NFC Championship where he had a great run where they handed it off to him and he ran all the way. I've seen him do that like a couple times last year. So for those reasons, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery definitely inside the top 20, no doubt about it, based on how well they're able to share the ball between those two. All right, moving on. At number 18, now we have James Conner. This guy can run and he can catch, very well both. The reason I have him this low is that, their offensive line, it's a little shaky, it might not be as significant as it was last year. But, also, they don't have, a lot of good receivers. Kyler Murray is coming off of an injury, so, they're going to want to run the ball a lot, and, James Conner's the guy for the job. Last year, I think he had 8 touchdowns. He definitely had, if I remember, over 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns, I would say. Yeah, I think it was 8 touchdowns. And you know what touchdowns get you? They get you points. Judging by how mid their offensive line is, not really sure he's going to have as many yards as he did last year. But, Marvin Harrison is a very aggressive wide receiver. So what they could do is they could basically pass until they get, close to the goal line and then run the ball to him for the touchdown. Most of the time. At least that's what I think the Cardinals will do anyway. All right, moving on to number 19, Rhamondre Stevenson. Who are their wide receivers? Kendrick Bourne, Demario Douglas. No. Hunter Henry really starting to regress. So, they have no significant wide receivers. So, they run the ball a lot. If it wasn't for injury last season, he would have had over 1,000 yards. No guaranteed that since, washed up Ezekiel Elliott was not good at all last year. He did play significant one game. But, besides that, the Patriots overall really couldn't get anything going. And their offensive line was, kind of shabby. They did make some improvements to the offensive line. And they don't have a lot of receivers. And they have a rookie quarterback. So, the reason that Rhamondre Stevenson is inside the top 20 is because, they're going to run the ball a lot. Because they don't have anyone besides Rhamondre Stevenson. Rhamondre Stevenson is their only significant running back. They don't have anyone to share the ball with to him. So, overall, Rhamondre Stevenson will get a lot of touches, and he will get a lot of touchdowns, and he will get you a lot of points. All right, moving on to number 20, the last running back from this tier column, we have Josh Jacobs. Again, Packers, they have a decent O-line. But that doesn't take away from the fact that Josh Jacobs is this low because he's very injury prone. Very. And plus, they already do have a pretty good receiving core, with Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, Jaden Reed. They're not going to run the ball. It's like the Texans. They're not going to need to run the ball as effectively because, they have a good receiving duo. Tank Dell, Stephon Diggs, and Nico Collins. So, if Josh Jacobs does get hurt, though, then who is going to be the running back? No one. That's the thing. Josh Jacobs is the really only significant running back. I really think they should have kept Aaron Jones. Like the Packers can't really seem to get a running back that can stay healthy. Aaron Jones was injured for most of the season last year. Speaking of which, at number 21, we have Aaron Jones. Again, the reason he's this low because they already have Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. Like they don't need like a running back as much because why need a running back when you already have like two ace wide receivers? I mean, Justin Jefferson played 10 games last year and he still hit 1,000 yards. Jordan Addison had 10 touchdowns. They do have a rookie quarterback though, and Aaron Jones played absolutely immaculate when he wasn't hurt. And again, the Vikings don't really have that good of an O line, and again, like these two are very injury prone, like as I mentioned. So that's the reason why these two are outside of the top 20. All right, now moving on to number 22, we have Kenneth Walker. Listen, Seahawks O-line is not really significant, and plus they have a good receiving duo with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, and heck, even Jackson Smith and Jigba. But they do have a quarterback that's starting to regress a lot. So they're not gonna be as accurate with the ball throwing. So they're gonna want to run the ball with Kenneth Walker a lot. And last season, he did have 8 touchdowns, a little under 1,000 yards, but it was still pretty significant. When I did watch him when he played the Eagles, he absolutely cooked us. We could not stop the running game. So for that reason, he is definitely at least inside the top 30 because by no means is he a bad running back at all. But moving on, right next to him, we have Alvin Kamara. The Saints really did. The Saints did add to their O-line. I think that guy Fashanu, I can't pronounce his first name, but his last name is Fashanu for sure. I know that. But when was the last time this guy was significant? 2018, 2019? Like, Alvin Kamara is really, really starting to get old. However, so is Derek Carr. So again, like Kenneth Walker, they're not going to be as accurate throwing the ball, so they are going to try to run the ball. And last year, Alvin Kamara did show signs of life, but nothing really great. He only ran for 600 yards. I mean, he only missed 4 games, so he played, you could say, a pretty full season and ran for only 600 yards. But he can catch too, so he can receive. And that is why I think, Alvin Kamara should be still pretty significant. I would take him, if I were you, I would take him, like, I would say 6th round because, I would take him, but I wouldn't take him over any of these guys, though. All right, we're moving on to 24 now, and that is going to be Nick Chubb. Again, injury, he suffered a pretty bad injury. He's not really going to be the same after last year. By no means is he going to be the same. Deshaun Watson. Overall, the Browns situation is not really looking good. They don't have a good quarterback. So, he could get a lot of touches since they don't have a good quarterback throwing Amari Cooper the ball. And they don't have anyone really significant besides Amari Cooper. So they're going to want to throw the ball to Nick Chubb. And last time Nick Chubb was healthy, he had a pretty good year. But, the injury and things are not, it's really going to limit him. But now moving on to someone else in this division, we have Jaylen Warren. They're not going to really share the ball as much as they did last year with Najee Harris. But when he was carrying the ball last year, he did pretty good, in my opinion. But just overall, Najee Harris is I think he's really a way better running back than Jaylen Warren. I think the Steelers really realize that. It really depends on who is going to be their quarterback, just like Najee Harris's fate. Whoever is their quarterback will decide. Russell Wilson, they're going to want to pass the ball a lot more. If it's Justin Fields, they're going to be a significant running team. you know? So it really comes down to whether who their quarterback is again. And again, like same reason with Najee Harris. You know, they added a lot to their offensive line. So they're no Lions skill level when it comes to sharing the ball, but still they do a great job with it. All right, now moving on to number 26, we have DeAndre Swift. If we didn't run the ball last year with him, the Bears are not gonna, because like DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, rookie quarterback, but like basically no O line at all. I mean, DeAndre Swift will not be that significant last year. He did good with us, put up over 1,000 yards, 5 touchdowns, but that was behind a good O line. So imagine what he does behind a bad O line like the Bears. It's just not going to happen for DeAndre Swift. But moving on to 27 now, I think. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. Rachaad White. Again, like, you know, Vita Vea, oh, no, not Vita Vea. Tristan Wirfs. I mean, he's good, but, again, Baker Mayfield's a solid passer. They're gonna want to pass the ball to Cade Otton, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. Somehow he was fourth. I mean, he could definitely catch the ball and run, so that's probably why he was ranked fourth in the league in running backs last year, according to fantasy. But you know, it's just that their offensive line isn't as significant, and they already have a good wide receiver duo, so they're not going to want to run the ball a lot. You know how it is with great receivers. It's kind of like how Aaron Jones is right now. All right, now we're at 27 now. 28 will be Austin Eckler. If this thing ever loads. 29 will be Gus Edwards. And 30 will be Zamir White. All of these three, Gus Edwards is behind a very bad O-line, the Chargers. I mean, Joe Alt's going to be good, but besides that, they don't really have anyone significant. I know Joe Alt's not going to allow a sack. Austin Eckler, God, has he regressed. He could catch, he could do a lot of things, but like he's getting to the part where he's just regressing. And then Zamir White's never been significant. He's behind a team that has no really obvious strengths in the O-line. They already have Devontae Adams, and we don't know who their quarterback's going to be. So, right now, currently, it's a mess for the Raiders. All right, now at 31, we have Devin Singletary. Obviously stepped up a lot for Dameon Pierce since he got injured. But overall, now that he's behind a bad O-line, I don't really think it's going to be significant. Now we have Brian Robinson Jr. Again, behind a pretty bad O-line, and plus he's not really going to get a lot of carries since they have Austin Eckler now. Javonte Williams next. Have not been very significant. Snapped his leg a couple years ago, so that's not is going to play a key factor in because he's very injury prone. Next, we have Jonathan Brooks, the newly drafted running back for the Carolina Panthers, but the Carolina Panthers have no O-line at all. They don't have a very significant offense, and plus, they're all set on receivers, so they're not going to run the ball as significantly. Plus, he's going to share a lot of carries with Miles Sanders and Chuba Hubbard. Now we have Ezekiel Elliott. Their running back position's terrible right now. Ezekiel Elliott, he's going to retire soon. This probably should be his last year. And the Cowboys' O-line's really starting to regress. Zach Martin is really starting to, regress a lot because he's aging a lot. And finally, at number 36, we have Zach Moss. Did okay last year, but when Jonathan Taylor came back, he was not significant. I think he only went for 700 yards last season when he was the starter. And that is not really going to cut it. Plus, the Bengals are going to pass the ball a lot. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is gonna do it for my running backs tier list. I hope you agree with this. It took a long time to film. So you guys already know what to do. Make sure to leave a like on this video and make sure to subscribe. We're on the road to 500 subscribers. I'm trying to get monetized very, very, very soon. So without further ado, I'll see y'all guys next time and make sure to stay tuned for my quarterbacks tier rankings, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace.